Overcast morning here in Yellowknife. Winter's closing in. It's about the middle of October, well, coming to the middle of October. Seems like we're going to have an early winter this year. Had a bunch of rain, snow flurries, but it's all melted. We're just above freezing. There's a sort of a semi-distant shot of the Robinson Headframe. That was built, roughly speaking, around 1980, and it's sitting on a shaft. That's one of the that was a Con mine one time. The Negus mine was there since the 30s. That mine was roughly 50 years of gold mining. That headframe is sitting over a shaft about 6,000 feet deep. It's on a shaft of more than a mile, straight down the ground. Numerous levels. They say there's over around 200 miles worth of drift going under different levels, going under Great Slave Lake where they mine gold. They say there's lots of gold still left there. But right now we're in the middle of a political debate with the city where they're going to, Miramar, the Con mine, which owns the headframe, is cleaning up the property, wants to tear the headframe down because they're returning the land to supposedly original, grow trees and grass on it. You won't even know there was a mine there. And some people in town don't want to tear the headframe down. It doesn't look that big from here, but it's a landmark. Like airplanes use it to come to Yellowknife sometime if they get lost. Boats on the lake can see it for long distance because it's got lights on top. Some people think it's an eyesore, but it's become sort of an icon of Yellowknife. So
I understand it's the tallest structure in the Northwest Territories.
It is the tallest structure in the Northwest Territories. So it probably, by the end of summer, it'll be knocked down. There's some people talking about putting a coffee shop on top, but it's actually a very big building. There's a lot of room in it if you wanted to do something with it. My idea is it should be a headframe. That there's mining concerns, they're exploring for gold, that found gold in the area. Well, then why can't we use it for a headframe and mine from there? Pump the water out and continue mining. But I guess that's not a good idea for the people who want it tore down. So it's a part of Yellowknife that'll probably be gone within a year or two. This is Grace Lake. This is right in city limits. One of the interesting things about Yellowknife, and one thing that people do, when they get their lunch hour off, they take their lunch bucket and they go fishing right in town. They just come out of the office building, come off the job, and take 15 minutes to get there. They spend throw a line in the water, eat their lunch, and then sometime get a fish, and then go back to work. And this is right in Grace Lake. Right across the road is Cam Lake, which is also, we got a number of lakes right in the city. The interesting thing about Grace Lake, they claimed it was one of the few lakes that had all species of fish in, which I'm not a big fisherman, but that was like whitefish and trout and jackfish or the great northern or grayling. That in the old days they claimed you could catch just about every species of fish that's in this area of the territories was in this lake, and they said not a lot of lakes have all the species. You'll even just have one or two or a couple, a few different fish in there, but not all of them. But now the city's finally, as far as I'm concerned, come to their senses. Here we live with all this water, and they don't put the houses on the water. You got to stay in the bush and just keep the shore. So now they're allowing houses to be built around the lake, so people have a nice view. They could go have their boat tied out, go out on the lake, do some fishing, and be closer to the water, which I think is correct considering we've got such a small population lives up here and so much water. Why not have a view and be close to the water?
The one thing I heard is that you're not supposed to have a motor on the lake.
Well,
which this guy has one, but
well, I have no idea.
I heard because they block that dock off, right? So guys can't get their boats on there.
Well, there's a bunch of politics going on here because these folks here that own this house have been here, the Christiansons, been here forever, and they figured they're just going to have this whole lake to themselves forever, and just natural, and now all of a sudden they're developing the other sides of the lake. Well, they're upset because now there's other people here. I mean, as individuals, we like to have something forever even though we don't own it, but now it gets to be shared by a bunch of other people. Of course, it reduced probably the value of their property, because they're not the only house in the lake that they've been for, I don't know how many years, 20, 30, maybe more years than that. But in a way, other people like to be on the lake too. Of course, you get into the politics, is there going to be a boat motor or no boat motor, or, they don't want to see dogs on it. There's all sorts of things that people get arguing about them. for time being, I don't have to, I'm not the mayor of this town, so I don't have to make any decisions. When I become the mayor, then I'll say, fine, we're gonna boat motor, no boat motor.
Dad, I got a question for you.
You got a question, okay. Go ahead.
What do you say to people when they tell you that Trump is stupid?
When somebody asks, or if somebody makes the statement that Trump is stupid, I say, what does that make you?
That's it?
What does that
Well,
mean?
it's pretty, well, what does that mean? I mean, if Trump, how does he get to the head of the pack with the Republican Party running for president? How does he look after his businesses, even if his dad or somebody gave them to him as a Christmas present? How do you look after him if you're stupid? You'd have nothing. You know the difference between stupid people and smart people? Smart people learn from the stupid people.
That's some deep shit.
That's what's up. Make America great again.
Bam.
Here on the left is a long lake, is where you park your RV or put your tent. Fred Henney Park. I liked it better back in the old days when you didn't have no fences and you could go there any time of the night. 24 hours a day it was open. There was no fences, there was no gates. Now everything is gated and fenced and security, and at a certain time of the year they put padlocks on so you can't get in there, and it was better when we didn't have it. This is our new bypass road. That's so you can drive past one of the gold mines that they're cleaning up and not see it so much. Here's my old truck, the Trucking for Jesus truck from the first year of Ice Road Truckers. They have it displayed in front of the visitor center. So when you come to Yellowknife, there's my old truck right there.
Trucking for Jesus is a regular thing. Ice road trucker. Woo!
This is the truck that made me famous. The truck is in good shape. It's a little bit beat up from being used, but it does need, it's been sitting so long that it's leaking antifreeze in the oil pan. The liners have let go, so it really needs an in-frame on the engine. I got a Cat engine in it, 8LL transmission, but otherwise the truck really good shape. A little bit of work, it should be good as new. They've been doing putting in some water lines and stuff, so they got some junk going around here. Yeah. We got our faded Canadian flag. Northwest Territories down the bottom. Jesus is my co-pilot. Well, I'm just going into the old town of Yellowknife here. This is where Yellowknife started in the 1930s, 35 or so, 1935. With the wood yard and Peace River Flats. They call it Peace River Flats because they had all these people come from Peace River. You gotta remember the dirty 30s, it was tough getting a job, down south. And this is like the light at the end of the tunnel for Canada after the dirty 30s, after the Depression. The two gold mines in Yellowknife, and people start going back to work, and men start getting jobs, and that's sort of the beginning. And just after the recession of the 80s, this was the light at the end of the, look, there's a new building, I haven't seen that one before. There was the light at the end of the tunnel at the end of the 80s were the diamond mines in northern Canada. So even though the north doesn't have much population, it plays a big part in the financial stability of the country. So we're going to go, well, it's a little ways yet. We're going to go up to Pilot's Monument. You can see it right there. That's the high point of land, that rock. And we're going to get a pretty good view of the surrounding area of Yellowknife.
This one's not working for the landscape too well.
It's chilly again. You get a good idea what Yellowknife's about from up here. This is where the city of Yellowknife started back in the 1930s, late 1930s. This was called the Rock. People build their houses on different parts of rock had to adapt it to the lay of the land. Since then, as we developed the city, we blasted the rock and we put in roads. But you can see we're surrounded by water. This is Yellowknife Bay, and we've got all the houseboats down here. And we always have a upset political system or situation because a lot of people in town want to get the houseboaters to pay tax because they use the roads, but they don't pay any tax because they're floating out in the bay. I agree with that. I'd rather they didn't pay tax. At least the person's got a place to go if you don't want to pay taxes, as far as land taxes. But we have quite a few people who live out on the water now. The only problem is in the fall, when the ice starts freezing, you can't cross the ice. And when it starts thawing in the spring for a period of time, you can't cross the ice because you'll fall through. Numerous people do. Usually they push a canoe or something, so when they fall in, they can pull themselves into the canoe. And then down here where the docks used to be government docks, well, there's Dave Smith. I've traveled with Dave. He's on his boat that's the Hearn Channel it's called. It's a green boat with a white cabin on it. Dave Smith on the Hearn Channel. He's a prospector. I don't know if he's been out prospecting or whether he's actually been hauling freight on the lake. Yeah, there's lots of, you can see it again, there's the Robertson Headframe over there from a different angle in town. That's used to be Con Mine. On this side, if you look across the bay, you can see where Giant Mine used to be. And of course, all the big houses, so they can look out on the water. And we're looking at the big houses and the apartments on the other side of the bay. This is called Back Bay on this side. Yellowknife Bay on this side. The other interesting thing is on the top of this pilot's monument, there's a beacon. And that beacon, it'll light up if there's an airplane, because this is used as a runway. So we've got airplane, this is a float base. Airplanes park down here, and airplanes park over there, so the airplanes are landing. But of course the boats are coming in and out. Plus we got the houseboaters going back and forth. Depending which way the wind's from, the airplanes will land on floats on the water. So this beacon will light up so that when, if you're in a boat, you see the beacon light up, you look for the airplane, you get out of the way. Goes the Hearn Channel now. He's just moving the boat now. That's Dave Smith in the Hearn Channel. So maybe he's going prospecting. I think one of the reasons they put the beacon up, 30 some years ago, there was a fellow out in the boat with a lady, and a plane was coming in. I think they called him the Tinker. And when the float plane was landing, it banged him on the head with a float, and it killed him deader than a doornail. The lady made it back to shore alive, but the plane hitting him on the head is going to have to be awful close to the water to bonk him on the head. And then ever since then, we put up a beacon so that people know that when planes are coming in, so they don't connect boats and planes together at high speed. There was an old geologist by the name of Fred Jolliffe that came to Yellowknife. He worked between 1928 and 35 in Canada, mapping gold occurrences. And he came here in the 30s and mapped the gold occurrences, and they named that island after him. So like when Yellowknife started back in the 30s, a lot of times, they didn't want to build a house on this rock. There was all swamp and water. It was easier to build on the island. So that island had like stores and lumber yard. It had fuel tanks. They also used to fill up with fuel for town, and they named it after Fred Jolliffe. Of course, then there were people on the other islands living over, where the two mines. They tend to build around the mine site also. But this is you can take a picture of that. It kind of, as a matter of fact, it shows some of the town in the old days on here. Like you can see, you look over there now, there's nothing. You can see a couple of houseboats around it, but they've cleaned the island off. It's gone back. But if you look on here, look, there's big fuel tanks. There's some tent frames. There's a house, maybe a warehouse over there. People living. So there's actually more people, way more people on there then than now. This picture here, that's a really big barge. Must have come from Hay River. And then look at this, how huge this barge is down here. That's how long that barge is. That's at the, well, maybe there's two, sorry. One here, one here, one here. So all these barges, because in those days, there was no road to Yellowknife. And goodness knows if there was much of an airport. So they brought all the freight in boats 150 miles from Hay River over to here. So they'd access Hay River by land, and then they'd access Yellowknife by water, and then the cat trains would come in the wintertime. They'd have cats pulling sleds behind them, loaded with freight. And if the ice had got thin, the guys would walk behind the cat, like way back behind the cat. They have like reins for a horse, and they'd steer the cat with the reins, so if it went through the ice, it wouldn't pull them through the ice too. That was over here. An airplane crashed right in a parking lot, a twin otter with a whole bunch of people, and only the 2 pilots died. And it crashed between, like in a part, it just barely fit, and just the way it crashed, went down on his nose right between a couple of big buildings, apartments and office building. And everybody on board lived. I mean, they were hurt, some of them, but the 2 pilots were killed, just over here.
Oh, that slanted house that she got down.
If you take a look at that lot, it's just an angle. You wouldn't think you could build a house on it. So Gino Pinn, the architect, built a house in that lot. You can't imagine that lot being usable unless you built a house at an angle like that. Pretty neat, eh?
You can